Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen, featuring David Limbrick from the Libertarians, Victoria.
The government's brought back this bill, the anti-vilification bill today. There's one of four outcomes that I could see that's happened this week. So far, we don't know of any deals that have happened. The first thing that could happen is that the government's done a deal with the Liberal Party. If that's the case, then the Liberal Party's sold out the values of liberalism that they're meant to be founded on. The second possibility is that they've done a deal, or they're in the process of doing a deal with the Greens. In that case, unlike the New South Wales Greens that recently heavily opposed this sort of laws in New South Wales, the Greens would be selling out their constituents who will likely be the first targets of this. Everyone knows that the first targets of this would likely be Palestinian protesters that the Greens claim to support. The third outcome is that the government hasn't actually got a deal and can't come to a deal, and they end up shelving it. And the final possibility here is that the government actually can't get anything through and it goes to a vote and it fails. I think, of course, I'd prefer that to happen. But what we're seeing in Victoria, the government has no credibility on being able to legislate away hate. What they've done with the Nazi salute laws actually backfired spectacularly. The Attorney General herself said that she hoped that these laws would never be used, that they would be a deterrent. What we actually found is that within hours of the laws coming into effect, we had the first arrest. The same thing will happen if these laws go through. If anyone thinks that neo-Nazis and Islamic extremists will be deterred by these laws, they've got it totally wrong. In fact, they see these laws as an opportunity to point out the hypocrisy of the government and to provide a platform for their abhorrent views.
I guess what are you worried about when it comes to the Greens? Do you think that some of what they're pushing the government might be open to, especially when it comes to the public interest defence?
Yeah, look, I think that if any deal is made between the government and the Greens, the bill can only get worse. We've seen in the past when the Greens do these deals, the Greens have been on a long lurch towards authoritarianism for a long time now. We can't see that the Greens will be making any sort of deal that will make this more liberal and more free. It'll actually make it worse. Anything that they're pushing for are things that the government was not willing to go for initially, and therefore the government's desperate now and they're doing deals with the Greens potentially to make things even worse.
Do you think it's more likely than not that the bill just gets dumped, or do you think it's more likely that they have a deal with the Greens?
I don't know at this point. I think it's still in flux. My understanding is that there's still negotiations been happening. That any sort of change that happens at this point doesn't have the proper scrutiny of Parliament because no one's been told what these things are, so it's all rushed through at the last minute. These are really serious laws that they're trying to bring in, and the idea that they'll just rush through these amendments just to get it through is quite abhorrent. None of the constituents that the government claims to have been consulting with would have been consulted about whatever the government is negotiating on at the moment. So I think it'll be a shock not only to the people of Victoria, but also the people that were pushing the government to go forward with these laws. Maybe they won't get what they were hoping for in the first place.
Hello, David. Thank you for that. They're not rushing them through. They've been planning them for years, these laws. I haven't been on Twitter for ages because I couldn't get the women's rights activists to understand that lowering the threshold for hate speech to ban the Nazi salute and Nazi symbols was to let these laws get through. And the data that they've used to justify these laws going through, you can find in here that they used data from an anonymous online survey that took 3 minutes to complete that they promoted within their network. And they report things like stalking, and death threats, but it's an anonymous online survey. There are no police reports. This is a video I made a year ago. Sign our statement of solidarity with the trans community. This was sent out to councils and organisations and stuff. They've signed it, but it doesn't say it on here that we're going to send people to prison for 7 years for not agreeing that men can be women. So the South Australian Union, the unions in Canberra, Victorian Trades Hall Council. Now to the Greens. They want a community-led and developed whole-of-government LGBTQIA+ strategy, which they've got. It's in the councils, it's in the state government, it's in the federal government now. And number 21, training in the workplace. 22, training in the workplace. And 26, anti-discrimination laws for people with diverse sexualities, gender identities and intersex variations to be consistent with the UK Carta principles on the application of international human rights laws. And it's a document that was commissioned to find all the possible UN human rights that could be used to create legislation. This one here, Principle 35, is the toilet one. Why they're so obsessed with the toilets, why the council spent $400,000 on destination toilets in Ballarat and put sanitary napkin disposal bins in the men's toilets. So, David, the Greens and Labor did a deal years ago. Also, the Human Rights Commission and the Anti-Defamation Commissioner have been slogging along, working away at these laws for the last few years. So the only hope now is that we change government in Victoria next year and go like Northern Territory have.
Stepping into his house of faith, Bishop Charles has always been firm in his beliefs.
Who were gathering together to say to the government, we need to be heard. We need to be heard because we believe that some of our rights were being eroded away.
3 years ago today, Bishop Charles was against changes to the NT's Anti-Discrimination Act made by Labor, which added protections against public verbal discrimination and removed a clause allowing religious schools to hire people only of their same faith.
We certainly believe we had rights for our schools to be able to teach according to our faith beliefs and for our ministers to be able to preach, respectfully of course, about what we truly believe.
It was an overwhelming amount of joy for a lot of people in the community, and especially security and safety in areas that inherently should be safe.
Now, the new CLP government's confirmed it's scrapping Labor's changes. The Attorney-General saying we believe Territorians should not have their speech policed or be attacked for telling a joke by a bureaucratic agency.
Listening to our community, some of those statements that have been made to them that have impacts in relation to their race, their sexual orientation, their age, or even their religion have a deep, deep sense that they do not belong. And that is not a joke. I think you're opening the doors for a very dangerous stream of hate speech here in the Northern Territory.
LGBTQIA+ advocates also shocked by the move.
I wasn't expecting this sort of topic to come around again so soon as a political football for the various parties to play around with people's human rights.
But those who rallied against Labor's law in the first place say they're not welcoming hate speech.
We say what we believe, but we believe strongly in freedom of conscience.
The government says the changes will be introduced to Parliament soon, despite calls urging them to reconsider. Tilda Colling, ABC News.
And that'll do. See you later. Bye.